My name is Olivia Carter. I am 33 years old. After 5 long years of painful trying, doctor visits, and heartbreak, I finally discovered I was pregnant during a business trip. I rushed home that night to surprise my husband. But when I walked into the house, I froze. My husband was flirting with my own sister, and what I heard in the next few seconds didn't just break my heart, it shattered my entire world. But before I tell you the rest of the story, please like and subscribe to the channel and comment your country below. Now, let's start. I was halfway through my business trip when I noticed something strange about my body. At first, I tried to ignore it. For the past 5 years, my life had been full of disappointment when it came to pregnancy. Every small change in my body used to give me hope, and then that hope would disappear a few days later. So I had trained myself not to get excited anymore. But that morning felt different. I woke up feeling unusually tired. My stomach felt slightly uneasy, and there was a soft dizziness that wouldn't go away. At first, I blamed the long meetings and travel stress. But later that afternoon, while walking back to my hotel after a meeting, a clear thought suddenly came to my mind. Could I be pregnant? I stopped walking. My heart started beating faster. For a moment, I told myself not to think about it, but the thought wouldn't leave my mind. So after dinner, I stopped at a small pharmacy near the hotel and bought a pregnancy test. Even while paying at the counter, I kept telling myself not to expect anything. I had taken too many tests before, too many disappointments. Back in my hotel room, I placed the small box on the bathroom sink and stared at it for a few seconds. My hands were trembling slightly. "Don't get your hopes up," I whispered to myself. But deep inside, a small spark of hope had already appeared. A few minutes later, I took the test. Then I placed it on the counter and turned away. Those 2 minutes felt longer than the last 5 years. Finally, I slowly turned back. And when I looked down, my breath stopped. 2 pink lines. For a moment, I just stood there, staring at the test like my mind couldn't understand what I was seeing. Then suddenly tears filled my eyes, and a small laugh escaped my lips. After 5 painful years of trying, I was finally pregnant. My legs felt weak, and I sat down on the bathroom floor, holding the test carefully in my hand. I placed my other hand on my stomach. "Hello," I whispered softly. I didn't know if the baby could hear me, but in that moment I felt like my entire world had changed. The first person I wanted to tell was my husband, Daniel. Throughout these 5 years, he had always acted supportive. Whenever I cried after another failed attempt, he would hold me and say, "It will happen someday." I believe it. He wanted doctor appointments with me, held my hand during tests, and even surprised me with little gifts when he knew I was feeling down. Because of that, I believed we were facing this struggle together. So naturally, I grabbed my phone to call him. But just before pressing the call button, I stopped. A smile slowly spread across my face.
No.
This news deserved something better than a phone call. It deserved a surprise. So instead of calling him, I canceled the rest of my meetings and booked the earliest flight home. The entire flight, my heart was full of excitement. I imagined Daniel's reaction again and again. Maybe he would cry. Maybe he would laugh. Maybe he would pick me up and spin me around like he did when we got married. Just imagining his face made me smile the entire trip. By the time I reached home, it was already late at night. The street was quiet, and the lights inside our house were still on. My heart started beating faster. This was it. I walked up to the door slowly, my hand resting on my purse where the pregnancy test was safely hidden. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. Soft voices were coming from the living room. Daniel was home, but someone else was there too. A woman's voice. At first I didn't think much about it, but then I recognized the voice. My younger sister, Emily. Emily visited us often, so it wasn't strange. I actually smiled for a moment. Maybe I could surprise both of them. But as I walked closer to the living room, something felt strange. They were laughing. Not normal laughter. It sounded playful, almost flirtatious. My smile slowly faded. I stopped just before entering the room and looked toward the living room. And that's when I saw them. Daniel was standing very close to Emily. His hand was resting on her waist, and Emily was smiling at him in a way that made my stomach twist. For a moment, I told myself I was misunderstanding the situation. But then Daniel spoke. Relax, she won't be back until tomorrow. Emily laughed softly. 5 years, and she still suspects nothing. My body went completely still. My heart started pounding so loudly, I thought they might hear it. Daniel continued calmly. You were right about the medication. Without it, she probably would have gotten pregnant years ago. Emily crossed her arms with a proud little smile. Of course I was right. Then she said something that made my entire body go numb. Soon she'll finally give up on having a baby. Daniel chuckled. And that's when I'll marry you instead. Emily leaned closer to him. And everyone will think you sacrificed your happiness, just to give her the child she always wanted. The pregnancy test inside my purse suddenly felt heavy. 5 years, the pain, the tears, the endless doctor visits, it wasn't fate. It wasn't bad luck. It was them, my husband, and my own sister. My vision blurred with tears. But I didn't walk into the room. I didn't scream. I didn't confront them. Instead, I slowly stepped backward. Quietly, I opened the door and walked out into the cold night, clutching the one miracle they tried to steal from me, my baby. For a long time, I just stood there in the empty street. The cold wind touched my face, but I barely felt it. Tears kept running down my cheeks, and my hands were shaking as I held my purse tightly against my chest. Inside, it was the pregnancy test, the proof that after 5 years of pain, I was finally going to be a mother. And the two people who should have been the happiest for me were the same ones who had been destroying my chances all along, my husband and my own sister. The betrayal felt too heavy to understand. I slowly sat down on the curb near the sidewalk as my breathing became uneven, and the memories of the past 5 years started rushing through my mind. All those nights when I cried quietly in the bathroom. All those doctor appointments where I prayed for good news. All those times Daniel hugged me and told me everything would be okay. Every single moment suddenly felt like a lie. I pressed my hand gently against my stomach. My baby, I whispered through tears. For a second, anger began rising inside me. I wanted to run back into the house. I wanted to scream at them. I wanted to expose everything right there. But then another thought stopped me. If I confronted them now, they would simply deny everything. They would act innocent, and they would find another way to hurt me again. No. I had already heard enough to know the truth. And this time, I wasn't going to lose. Slowly, I wiped the tears from my face and stood up. That night, I didn't go back inside the house. Instead, I booked a room at a nearby hotel. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I could hear their voices again. 5 years, and she still suspects nothing. Soon she'll give up on having a baby. Then I'll marry you instead. Each sentence felt like a knife in my heart, but by morning, something inside me had changed. The crying had stopped. The pain was still there, but now it was mixed with something else, determination. If Daniel and Emily believed they had already won, then I would let them keep believing that for now. Later that morning, I returned home. When I walked inside, Daniel was sitting in the kitchen drinking coffee, like everything was normal. When he saw me, he smiled. You're back early, he said casually. I missed you. Those words would have melted my heart before, but now they felt empty. Still, I forced myself to smile. My meetings ended sooner than expected, I said calmly. He walked over and hugged me. For a moment, I almost pulled away, but instead I stayed still, because now I understood something very important. If I wanted the truth to come out, I needed them to keep thinking I knew nothing. Over the next few days, I acted exactly the same as always. I cooked dinner. I talked about normal things. I even laughed at Daniel's jokes. Meanwhile, I started paying closer attention to everything. I checked the medicine bottles in the bathroom, the same vitamins Daniel used to give me every night, the ones he said would help my body prepare for pregnancy. But now I wasn't so sure anymore. I secretly took photos of the labels. I also started checking Daniel's messages whenever he left his phone unattended. It didn't take long before I found what I needed: conversations between him and Emily. Messages about their future, their plans, and their timing. But the worst message was the one that made my stomach twist. Daniel had written, Don't worry. Soon I'll tell everyone she can't have children. After that, marrying you will look like the only solution." Emily replied with a laughing emoji. Poor Olivia. She'll never see it coming. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I slowly locked the phone and placed it back exactly where it was. They thought I was blind. They thought I was weak. But they had no idea that everything was about to change. 2 weeks later, Daniel announced something during a family dinner. He stood up, cleared his throat, and held my hand in front of everyone. "I have something important to say," he began, his voice sounding emotional. "I love my wife more than anything in this world." The room became quiet. But after 5 years of trying, we've accepted that she may never become a mother. I felt my fingers tighten slightly. He continued speaking like the perfect, loving husband. So, after many painful conversations, we decided something difficult. He looked around the room dramatically. "For the sake of having a child, I will marry someone else." Gasps filled the room. My sister Emily lowered her head, pretending to look nervous. Daniel squeezed my hand, and the woman who agreed to help us. He slowly turned toward Emily, is her own sister. The room exploded with shocked whispers. Everyone looked at me with sympathy. They thought I was the poor, broken wife sacrificing everything. But inside, I was completely calm, because they had just walked straight into the trap I was preparing. And very soon, everyone in that room was about to learn the truth. Daniel stood proudly in the middle of the room, holding my hand like he was some kind of hero. Emily stood beside him, pretending to look nervous and embarrassed, but I could see the small smile hiding on her face. They both believed their plan was working perfectly. For a few seconds, I stayed silent. Then slowly, I stood up. The room became quiet again. Daniel looked at me with a soft expression. "You don't have to say anything," he said gently, pretending to care. "We already talked about this." I looked at him calmly, then slowly removed my hand from his. "I know," I said softly, "but I do have something to say." Everyone turned their attention toward me. I took a deep breath. For 5 years, everyone here knows how badly I wanted to become a mother. Many people nodded with sympathy. Some of my relatives even looked emotional. And for 5 years, I believed that maybe something was wrong with me. I continued. My voice trembled slightly. I blamed my own body. Daniel lowered his head, pretending to look sad. But then I said something that made him suddenly look up. "But sometimes life surprises you." The room became completely silent. I placed my hand gently on my stomach. And 2 weeks ago, I discovered something incredible. I looked around the room slowly. I'm pregnant. For a moment, no one moved. Then the room exploded with shocked voices. What? Pregnant? After 5 years? I could see Daniel's face turning pale and Emily's eyes widening in disbelief. Daniel forced a nervous laugh. That's wonderful, he stuttered. But I wasn't finished. I looked directly at him. Yes, it is wonderful. Then my voice became colder. Especially considering that for the past 5 years, someone has been secretly giving me medication designed to prevent pregnancy. The room suddenly went silent again. Daniel's face lost all color. Emily took a step back. I reached into my purse and slowly pulled out my phone. I spent the last 2 weeks collecting proof. I turned the screen toward everyone. Messages, photos of the medicine bottles, screenshots of conversations. And finally, the messages between Daniel and Emily. Gasps filled the room. Someone whispered, "This can't be real." I looked directly at my sister. You really thought I would never find out? Emily's face turned completely white. Olivia, listen, it's not what you think. Stop, I said calmly. Then I looked at Daniel. For 5 years, you pretended to love me. For 5 years, you watched me cry and blame myself. And all that time you and my own sister were poisoning me. The room erupted into angry voices. Relatives started shouting. Some people looked at Daniel with disgust. Others stared at Emily like they couldn't believe what they were seeing. Daniel tried to step toward me. Olivia, please let me explain. But I stepped back. No, I said firmly. There's nothing left to explain. Then I calmly placed a folder on the table. These are the divorce papers. Daniel stared at them like he had just seen a ghost. You're divorcing me? I looked straight into his eyes. You lost that right the moment you tried to destroy my life. Then I added one final sentence. And, by the way, the police are already on their way. At that exact moment, there was a loud knock on the front door. 2 police officers walked into the room. Everyone stepped aside as they approached Daniel and Emily. One of the officers spoke calmly. We received a report involving illegal drugging and fraud. Daniel tried to speak, but the officer raised a hand. You have the right to remain silent. Emily started crying. Daniel looked completely broken. Within minutes, both of them were taken away in handcuffs. The room was silent again. Everyone looked at me differently now, not with pity, but with respect. I placed my hand on my stomach again. For the first time in weeks, I felt peace. Because the people who tried to destroy my life had finally destroyed their own. And this time, I wasn't the woman hiding in the hallway anymore. I was the woman who survived. And soon, I would become a mother. Today, 5 years have passed. My daughter is 5 now. She is the happiest part of my life. It's just the 2 of us and our small, peaceful home. I never married again. I chose to raise my daughter on my own. As for Daniel and Emily, they are still in prison. And for the first time in my life, I finally have peace.